Hello students, welcome to EPG Patashala. I am Dr. K.R. Rammohan, Associate Professor, Head Department of Anthropology, Sikkim University. Today we are going to discuss a module on the contribution of religious and spiritual leaders and reformers. This module comes under the paper Indian Anthropology. So before we begin this module, let us see what are the learning objectives. To know about the contribution of different religious reformers, to know about the contribution of spiritual leaders and reformers, to know about their contribution, and to know about their works done in different parts of the country, north, south, east, west. Now we are all aware and we know that India has been a home for numerous sects, mostly religious sects. There are many groups, and these social groups have customs, they have their own individual practices in terms of their religion. We also see that all these social groups in India have different demographic dimensions. Hence, India represents mostly differences which is observable in people's cultures. Despite there are many differences among all the groups, there is a shared heritage. All these aspects of differences have their counterpoints which join these things, and that makes as a whole, which binds people as a whole. So India is seen as a plethora of various cultural references which are united and deeply bounded at the core. So the various roots of these social groups can be understood in different ways because of their culture. They have their own logic and rationalism. Knowing that these groups have differences, these opposites have historically been a source of conflicts. However, there have also not been a dearth of efforts to look into the various remedies for these situations. Many people, many thinkers, many intellectuals have tried their best to bring some kind of a logic, bring some kind of a rationality and to truth, to replace these kinds of social differences among people which are based on their cultural practices. We can see these examples in the realm of literature and religious cults as far back as 200 BC, have shown that people try to illuminate individual minds as time and situation have demanded. Opposition of undesired luxury and too much emphasis on the desires, or in Indian context we call it the boga, were opposed by Nathpanthis. It started long time back. Later, religious men and women try to put their emphasis on doing the good deeds for the benefit of the people and to live in a simple way, just practicing their traditions. So if you look at historically, the first struggle of independence, which is also termed as the revolt of 1857, has given a much understanding for this process. There were different reasons for this new awakening. The self-assessment after the British acquired the Indian territory, and the first time there is a foreign rule, contact with the European people, has consequently acquainted Indians with a modern Western way of thinking. Their orientation towards philosophy, the terms of equality, justice, and there is an upsurge of science and technology in people's lives. Perhaps these could be the prominent reasons and sources for an increased calls for to gain reforms and remedial measures when Indian society is grappling with these social inequalities. However, there were great intellectuals were there even before this movement started. In the beginning of 19th century, intellectuals like Raja Rammohan Rai, Vidyasagar was immensely contributed to the cause of reformation in Indian society. If you look at the eastern part of India, the Bengal part, Raja Rammohan Rai may be counted as the first pioneer in bringing reforms, who not only opposed the inhuman conditions which are prevailing in those times, and he has brought a lot of initiatives and efforts to enlighten the common people. In the second decade of 19th century, he formed this Atmiya Sabha, which later popularized as Brahma Samaj. Raja Rammohan Rai vehemently opposed the system of widow burning or the inhuman practice of sati, which fundamentally cuts the human rights, which fundamentally opposes human dignity to live in the society. It was considered to be a cruel custom in those days. Rammohan Rai also stressed the pulse of the society and found that many differences within the society are just because of many sects which are simply worshipping the idols without any rationality. So Rammohan Rai wanted to try to unite the religion and offered solutions to this practice of monotheism so that everyone can practice one kind of worship, while simultaneously is putting thoughts on Western education and science. So Raja Rammohan Rai propagated the political thoughts and the consciousness about the development across the world. With these sincere efforts, a ban on sati was put by the government. Government wanted to make it a legislation that there will be no more sati. Another such leader in this process was Isar Chand Vidyasagar, who led an exemplary life and propagated that widow remarriages and women's education. Vidyasagar opened as many schools and other institutions so that girls can come and take education, which was not there before. Women were not allowed. And with these efforts, it resulted in an act of government which facilitated widow remarriage. Vidyasagar's main contribution was towards uplifting the status of women, which denied many opportunities in the social and public sphere. He wanted to elevate the status of women. For this purpose, Vidyasagar persuaded the British government to make new legislations towards widow remarriages. And hence, the Widow Remarriage Act of 1856 came into Indian society, which gave complete rights to widows to marry again and to lead a decent life, which can live with dignity. Another prominent social reformer in this part of India was Swami Vivekananda, who was basically inculcated into religion and the cult of Kali, that to bring revolutionary ideas He announced that all sorts of differences like untouchability, caste system, untruth should be banished. And he promoted education. And he pointed out that there are certain socio-political weaknesses which are hindering the developmental thinking process. He preached the whole concept of humanism, which is the highest form of philosophy for Swami Vivekananda, that all religions had promoted humanism. So he wanted to say that the truth and humanism are important in your religious practice. He tried to inculcate new value systems towards the youth and says that the youth are the main pillars of the society. He wanted to bring a radical change through his inspiring lectures, through his writings, his messages, that one has to abandon these religious evils and construct a new social reality by involving in community participation. Similarly, in the Western India, there were many social reformers which tried to bring a new social moral order. Or Justice Ranade, Gokhale, Jyotiba Rao Phule, which has fought vehemently against the caste system and initiated many social reform movements and the social evils existing in that particular point of time. They also started many institutions to emancipate the masses and propagating against the evil practice of untouchability and promoting education for women, promoting equal rights for the depressed classes, and how to bring these marginalized sections into the mainstream society, which were neglected for centuries together and considered to be as inferior human beings. Dayananda Saraswati, who started the Arya Samaj, to root out the evils of Hindu religion and to give a new zeal and reforms, was emerged as a significant movement. So Dayananda Saraswati, they said that there is only one God, there are not multiple gods. He questioned the illogical practices of many rituals which are practiced in polytheism, and he denounced this rigid caste system which put Indian society into many divisions. In these times, Bal Gangadhar Tilak want to sensitize people towards the nationalistic movement, and he became an activist in consolidating the force to fight against the British. His contributions to the field of education are noteworthy through his writings. In the South, we have social reformers like Vardachare, Anand Charlu, and many more, which brought significant Veeraslingam, who preached against the inhuman practices. They wanted to see the change at the community level. In Tamil Nadu, we can see the efforts of Periyar, which proclaimed that one should not believe in God, but one should look for the humanity. The temple entry movement has started and took a final shape that no one should be denied and no one should be discriminated against these religious practices. Similarly, we can find many social reform movements in the northern part of India, and particularly the contributions of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan stand tall in the movements which targeted for the Muslim community. Kant's main opposition to stop the social evil prevalent in that community, and he wants to bring and evoke a new set of consciousness among the Muslim community. Kant was very famous for his contribution to the field of education. In 1862, Kant founded a scientific society to translate all the English books into the local language Urdu so that all the masses can read and benefit and understand the spirit of science, the spirit of modern ideas, values. He wants to sensitize this Muslim community through his translation works. He also started an English Urdu journal through which he wanted to propagate and spread the ideas of modernism and social reform. He wanted to bring a radical change among the Muslim community to shun some of the old practices and to bring a new outlook towards humanism. With these initiatives, he established this Mohammedan Oriental College, where everyone can come and study the modern education, learn science, technology, which is good for the human development. And today we have the same college as Aligarh Muslim University, which is creating the needs of higher education at a large level. In 1862, Kant founded a scientific society to translate all the English books into the local language Urdu so that all the masses can read and benefit and understand the spirit of science, the spirit of modern ideas, values. He wants to sensitize this Muslim community through his translation works. He also started an English Urdu journal through which he wanted to propagate and spread the ideas of modernism and social reform. He wanted to bring a radical change among the Muslim community to shun some of the old practices and to bring a new outlook towards humanism. With these initiatives, he established this Mohammedan Oriental College, where everyone can come and study the modern education, learn science, technology, which is good for the human development. And today we have the same college as Aligarh Muslim University, which is creating the needs of higher education at a large level. So Kant's main idea was to bring a modern outlook among this community. He wanted to prepare the new generation with this broad outlook. Hence this intellectual movement is called the Aligarh movement, which brought significant changes. Other leaders are equally important in this part of India are the Madan Mohan Malviya, Anne Besant, who started this Theosophical Society. She wants to bring the humanist principles. Lala Lajpat Rai, Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad, to name a few, were at the vanguard to promote women's education. They thought that women's contribution is immense, and they are in opposition to all the evil customs which are hampering the social development, the scientific spirit, the human spirit, which is crippling the nation at that point of time. So these leaders took up the reforms as a part of their political activities, as they thought of that reforms are nothing but as an ongoing process, inseparable from political life. And they want to bring these changes in all aspects of social life. One cannot delineate their reforms mostly through political, but they have more reflections towards the ordinary social process. During this time, one of the greatest intellectuals in Indian society, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, all through his life, socially as politically, kept fighting against the social evil of Indian society. And Ambedkar's major contribution in eradicating the social evil and fighting for the rights of the untouchables and the other deprived classes in the society. So at the time of preparation, the government of India in 1999, he advocated for the separate electorates for all the untouchables and other lower caste Hindu people. Ambedkar demanded that a policy of reservation for such communities, they can be incorporated into education, employment, and the political spheres. Ambedkar wanted to propagate his vision, his ideas, his reformation policy through various publications like Mook Nayak, Bahishkrit Bharat, a periodical to create awareness among all the masses who are discriminated against through the caste system, to fight for their rights and to become citizens of this country. Ambedkar was very critical about this caste system, and he wanted to educate these untouchable masses to assert themselves, to lead a dignified human life in Indian society. So Ambedkar started these public movements against the discrimination faced by these people who are labeled as untouchables. And he wanted to see that there should be no discrimination, even a small public service like public water resources. And he burned this manuscript of Manusmriti, which is a moral text of the Hindus, which gains much importance to perpetuate the caste system, that upper caste have more privileges and lower caste have no privileges. And it is the moral guide, the duties prescribed in this text. So in 1932, when the third roundtable conference in the UK, where Ambedkar participated, the British announced the infamous communal award, according to which there was a provision for separate electorate in British India for all the different communities. Thus, the untouchables became a separate electorate. It means that for election to the seats reserved for untouchables, only those sections of the people can vote for. So after long discussions between Ambedkar and Congress leaders, the Pune Pact reached in 1932, according to which the system of separate electorate was abolished, but reservation of seats to depressed classes remained the same. Hence now the untouchables would not be a separate from Hindus because these seats were reserved for them. So it was a major step in recognizing the political rights of the untouchables within the fold of Hindu social order. On similar lines, the Constitution of India in 1950 gave benefits to reservations to both scheduled castes and also to the scheduled tribes. During this time, along with Ambedkar, Mahatma Gandhi remained at the helm of political affairs. Since early age until his death, he fought for the migrated workers, the rights against the apartheid in Africa. And later when he came to India, he started fighting for freedom struggle to bring independence to India from the British rule. Gandhi's approach was broad and his political ideology was very unique. Gandhi thought of upliftment of the poor and the marginalized as a part of his political agenda and goal. The empowerment of unprivileged was the ultimate aim for his theory of the state. He considered state as a welfare and democratic institution where equality in all forms was the beginning of the true independence. Hence, Gandhi took up social reforms along with his political agenda. Gandhi was a stalwart who took education as a primary goal and economic independence. His philosophy to reform emphasized upon the root causes. Hence, Gandhi opposed untouchability in any kind or in any form. This was the basic way to ensure equality at social and humane level. Gandhi was also want to enrich individual mind and consciousness of humanity. Gandhi thought that education would also be an employment and cottage industry oriented, which not only bring in economic independence but also instill profound confidence and respect for individuals in Indian society. So Gandhiji thus propagated and acted upon the ideas related to stay off, not to practice the prevailing social evils. And his whole agenda was to uplift the status of women. Many people think that Gandhi was only a political thinker, but knowing all these things, we can say that Gandhi is a profound social reformer and he wants to bring social change in Indian society through his constructive programs. To summarize, how the reform movements starting from 18th century and 19th century brought several common things. All the reform movements has propagated that the idea of one God and the basic unity of all religions is to unite humanity, unite all the people at the core level. Thus, these social reform movements wants to bridge the prevailing gulf, the social gulfs, the artificial gulf between caste groups, between religious groups, and between other social aspects. All the reformers has attacked the control of the priesthood, the meaningless rituals, the idolatry worship, and they want to propagate the spirit of humanitarianism, the core of being humane. And these reform movements were expressed and attacked that perhaps the root system is only the caste system, and they want to abolish the forms of child marriage. All the reformers wanted to give immense empowerment to women's education. They thought that women's contributions are significant and they want equal rights and status in the society. Most of the reformers were against the form of untouchability, which is very human. They considered this inhuman practice should be abolished, where dignity and equal rights to given to all the lower caste people. Hence, the core of these reform movements has fostered the principles of self-respect, self-reliance, self-dignity, independence. Well, not only propagating these ideas, one could also see through this nationalistic movement against the struggle for British, a spirit of patriotism has been inculcated. Even in the post-independent India, many social reformers have followed. The likes of Vinoba, Baba Amte, many have tried to bring certain reforms through the form of their activism. They want to root out these age-old practices which are creating social engulf between communities, between individuals. It is to bring an organized society, a society which is considered to be as a whole, where all the social problems can be rooted out, comes with alternative measures towards a developing society, a society where equality, fraternity, common living, Individual rights are respected despite many identities. Thus, we can see that these reformers had brought significant changes in awakening the people in all aspects of life.